Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another American Reacts. We're looking at a really fun video today, I presume. It is maps of Australia. You know, some different interesting maps of Australia. I've seen this for like America before, and they were really interesting. So I thought, why not stumble upon some Australian versions of videos like that? And I assume it's going to be really fun. This comes from a channel called Zimbacks. So make sure to check them out in the description down below, as well as this original video. Let's take a look at some interesting maps of Australia at the land down under. Here we go. All right, here we go. All right, so I will pause some of them if they're really involved like this. Look at this. So I imagine this is pretty straightforward. Languages spoken, or maybe most prominent language spoken in each region. English being pretty common, no surprise there. But look at these. Oh man, I bet you guys would love to see me try and pronounce some of these. There is a lot more languages than I would have ever imagined. Camilla Array, maybe. Diane Dottie, Darling. That one, look at all the J's and T's. I don't even know how to pronounce any of these. Very cool, though, to see, right? Especially with the colors and the words. Wow, really interesting. Very cool. I would not have known that. Okay, now how weird is this? I've seen pretty similar maps of Australia like this. 2% of Australia's population lives in the highlighted region. So Australia is a massive continent, you know, almost the size of the United States, very big. And to think that this whole like huge percentage, like this big percentage of the landmass is only occupied by 2% of the people. That's so bizarre. Like, look at all that. It's huge. So yeah, everyone literally lives in Tasmania and the coast. And what's interesting is I've seen a map of the U.S. like this, and my whole life never thought the U.S. was like this, but it kind of is too. I guess like millions and millions of people in the U.S. live on especially the East Coast and down in Florida, and then along the Gulf Coast, or you know, the Gulf of Mexico, and then a lot live in Southern California area. In the middle of the country, I would argue, has way more than Australia has here in the middle. But it is pretty sparse compared to the edges. Ocean's right there, so I guess that's not all bad, is it? All right, what do we got here? Most similar places to Australia. New Zealand, that's no surprise. Canada, that's interesting. United Kingdom, Ireland, and the United States. So the United States is on there. That's cool. But it's fifth. Ireland is more similar than the United States is. That's very interesting. Of course, the criteria for this, if you look down here, is 20% demographics, 20% culture, politics, technology, and geography. So kind of a mixture of things there. And for those that are curious, I might be covering this up. I'm not sure. I can't see myself until post. But if you can't see this, its least similar places are Somalia, Yemen, Burundi, Guinea-Bissau, and Eritrea. Wow, a couple of those countries I know nothing about. I'll admit it. There you have it. Australia's state governors 2020. That I know nothing about. I'm not a huge political person, and outside of the U.S., I'll admit it, I just don't know much at all about politics. So naturally, I wouldn't know much about Australian politics. What the heck is this? A cursed map. I don't get it. I feel like I should get it, and I don't get it. Other than I just... Oh, hold on. Wait a second. Now it's clicking. Okay, now I'm seeing some things here. Okay, I'm seeing Ireland. I'm seeing Italy here. I get it. It's like showing parts of Europe and things like that. Maybe the UK over here. Wow, that's weird, huh? Just kind of bizarre. Also shows you how big Australia is. Now look at this. This is cool seeing historical maps. 1920s map of none other than Australia. And look at that. Of course, we still have the big names like Brisbane, Ipswich, Newcastle, Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide. Adelaide is on there. Cool. Uninhabited. Look at that. How big that is. Wow. And I noticed some differences. Even this American can notice that. The big difference I see is, South Australia, and instead of Northern Territory, we have North Australia and Central Australia. So that's really interesting, right? That's a lot different than it looks today, and that's only 100 years ago. Of course, if you look at the key down there, yeah, not a lot of inhabitants, right? Only a few hotspots like Brisbane and Sydney, for example. Look at that population density map. That's really cool. Of course, it's on the edges again, and you can pick out the big ones, right? Again, Sydney, Melbourne, things like that. Perth over here. But then, other than that, it is like just barren. Good God, look at that, river basins of Western Australia. That is really neat. Wow, very well done. Love the way that looks. This is cool. Australian GDP per state compared with nations. So, in other words, Western Australia's GDP is similar to the nation of Pakistan. So that's really interesting, right? Nepal for Northern Territory, Ecuador for South Australia, Queensland is similar to Hong Kong. And look at that, we have an Austria similar to New South Wales, right? And then Victoria, Malaysia, Uganda for Tasmania, and Jordan is, I'm assuming that's ACT. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Exaggerated relief map of southeastern Australia. Wow. Now keep in mind it is exaggerated, but look at that. It's very cool to see. It's nice to see that southeastern Australia definitely has some elevation change and natural wonders going on. Now this is something I like to see. I'm someone who grew up in a pretty rainy area, and that's why I love deserts. I've said it many times. I'm just sick of the rain. I'm not a big rain fan. Some people love rain. I would flock towards probably somewhere in, maybe like the desert here in Northern Territory, in the southern part, or maybe western, just because it's dry. I like the dry, man. That's how I am. Yeah, those are definitely the dry spots. Of course, the edges or the coast will be more wet, and that is the case if you look at the rainfall. But we don't really have any pink areas other than down on the west coast of Tasmania and a little sliver of Queensland there. So nowhere crazy rainy. Just, I would say, moderate rain to very dry. So quite interesting. Oh, now this is cool. Here's the nearest country you are, depending on where you are in Australia. And look at this tiny sliver. You are closest to Timor-Leste right there. Otherwise, most of Western Australia and even into the central part here, you're closest to Indonesia. That's no surprise. But as right here, Papua New Guinea, New Caledonia, that's interesting, those islands, right? And then, of course, down here, which is where a lot of population are, you're closest to New Zealand. And it's funny, on a map, I haven't memorized maps completely, but I always feel like in my head, I always put New Zealand a little more north. I forget that it's not only next to Australia, but it's also south of it, down here. I always think, if you can see my mouse cursor, it's like right here, but it's not. It's more south. It's kind of interesting. Maximum temperature. Now, this is what I like to see. Okay, well, look at the hot spots. Wow. Much of the interior right here, which is, of course, where people, for the most part, do not live, presumably because it's dry and unbearably hot. That would have something to do with it. Look at Tasmania. Not hot at all, huh? We're pretty mild. So I would assume Tasmania is a very pleasant climate in the summer and maybe the fall. It could be quite cold in the winter and maybe even parts of the spring or so. So yeah, also over here, a little cooler than I would have thought on this coast over here, but Western Australia looks pretty warm, around like the 39 Celsius mark. Same with up here. Queensland looks pretty dang hot, approaching much of it with like 42 to 45 Celsius. And then, of course, South Australia and Northern Territory can get pretty dang hot as well. And we're talking 45 degrees Celsius. That's gotta be, I haven't memorized these in my head yet, but I mean, that's gotta be over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. That is crazy, man. Oh, look at how cool this is. Another exaggerated relief map of southeastern part, but at night. That is really neat. Again, look at the gap between Tasmania there, and look at all the lights on the coast. Oh, that is very cool looking. Estimated resident population density grid. Kind of the same concept. You can see where all the lights would be, or in this case, it's just population density, but it kind of resembles lights. And yeah, look at all that right here. The southeastern and I guess middle or central eastern is the most popular indeed. Wow. Very interesting. Of course, Adelaide area over here, Perth. Whoa, look at that. Alice Springs, of course, on my very high on my list of places I still haven't looked at, but I really want to learn about because I feel like it's an awesome, hot, like desert town, and that's what I'm about. Wow, solar eclipses. That looks like a good spot, right? So does Yardia. I've never even heard of it. Looks like they get a little bit of everything there. Wow. Gold Coast. Look at the streets. Oh my God. These are mostly like, I'm assuming like major county and country roads and highways. Look at all the crazy, overwhelming streets down here. Again, in that same southeastern area, even Tasmania. And then Perth. So southwestern, Western Australia is doing pretty well for population here. But then look at that. Oh, interior Western Australia, interior Northern Territory, even South Australia, you are on your own, man. That's pretty freaky, right? Being so desolate and barren like that is eerie. It's an eerie feeling. Wow. You just have one kind of artery going through the middle there, and that's it. Ooh, look at this. I love these. There is a map of Australia over, of course, the map of the contiguous 48 states. Of course, if you include Hawaii and the big boy, Alaska, then the U.S. is way bigger just by Alaska alone. But yeah, if we look at the actual mainland USA, the 48 states, very similar, right? Just edges Australia out by a little bit. I mean, Australia covers arguably more of a north-south. If you follow this tip way up here, all the way down to, Hobart, Tasmania, but not as wide because the U.S. on the southern end is not too wide, but obviously fans out on both sides going north. So yeah, it's really cool to see. It really is. A cool footnote would be like, if you want to go from Perth to Sydney, that kind of be like going from Los Angeles, California, to Tampa, Florida, for example. It's pretty cool. And that's it. That is it. That was really cool. That was only a few. But they were really well done, really interesting. That is from Zimbax. If you want to watch that uninterrupted and check out the channel. What did you guys think of that? I really hope you enjoyed that. I feel like we're going to get a lot of good comments on this one, so comment away. Tell me what you thought of these. Show me some links or videos or just, an anecdote about some interesting geography or map-related content that you know of. These are really cool. Australia is a really fascinating country, and it's interesting from a geographic and population perspective as well, if you ask me. So leave a like on there if you learned something. Subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this. Check out the description, again, for this original video. And, of course, other ways you can support my channel. My name is Ian. You're watching IWrocker. Until next time, guys. Catch you later.